Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today I'm covering All That Glitters and Wishing You Well. I've always thought that these two episodes worked very well as sister episodes. There's not even a specific reason for that, just something about their titles I guess fit well together. Maybe their plots too, if you think about it from a certain angle. But anyway, even though I like these two episodes as a paired unit, individually I've got very different opinions about them. I'd say it should be rather easy to predict which of these episodes I like more than the other, at least if you've watched any of my reviews, but who knows, maybe I'll surprise some of you. As always, before I can get started with that, I have to say a quick thank you to everyone watching today. Y'all are great. I haven't been responding to comments as much, but I do read all of them, I promise. I really appreciate them. And with that said, let's just get right into it. The first episode of this interesting sister pair is All That Glitters. What's funny is that every so often, at least before I had done the reviews of every episode of the show, I'd sometimes mix up this episode with its sister episode, Wishing You Well. It's even funnier considering that one of the most memorable parts of this episode for me is when the title is said in episode, but perhaps the fact that I think of Wishing You Well before All That Glitters is indicative of something. What that something is, I don't know. Well, I do, but I ain't telling y'all. Instead, I'm just gonna get this discussion started. All That Glitters starts off really well. In this beginning scene, I love that we get right into it with a customer ordering a monster Krabby Patty, and everybody but Squidward absolutely freaking out over it. It was hilarious how the customer in the bathroom joined in on this shock as well, and what follows is a neat visual gag with the live-action human hands coming in and dumping this absolute unit of a meat pile onto the grill. Do people even say absolute unit anymore? Can we bring that back? Anywho, it's when SpongeBob tries to flip this giant pile of meat that it happens. His spatula snaps. Before I discuss what follows, I wanted to take a second to say that this was low-key and unexpected direction for the episode to go in. I don't know, I was expecting this episode to go down a route involving the monster Krabby Patty, perhaps a route more like pickles. On one hand, it was probably for the best that the episode didn't do this, since it would have run the risk of being a Pickles clone. On the other hand, the direction this episode did end up going in was bad. Oops, did I just spoil myself? It's a shame that All That Glitters starts so well, because it makes what's to come after these first couple minutes all the more disappointing. We're not quite there yet, but it's coming. And since y'all already know that I won't like where this episode is going, I might as well just say that now. But first, let's go through these next few good moments. SpongeBob, of course, starts having a freak-out moment because of a spatula breaking, and this moment is actually really funny to me. SpongeBob crying out exaggeratedly in all these different locations, with some of them having their own gags, was great, and the fact that it's the same sound over and over made it funnier. And I also love that we get a cameo of the therapist from SquidBob Tentacle Pants during this joke as well. SpongeBob stopping his shouting just for the therapist to say, "Go on," is hilarious to me. And things get even more dramatic as the spatula literally goes to a hospital, and SpongeBob visits Spat, as it is called here, on its hospital bed. I really like the montage of SpongeBob and Spat in this scene. It's cute how much SpongeBob loves his spatula, and also SpongeBob fighting a literal pirate with his spatula? So many questions, and so few answers. Speaking of random things happening with no explanation that I find funny, I love how the doctor that talks to SpongeBob is actually an actor, and no one bats an eye at that. It's just a random joke that is just so funny because of its randomness. And I love how a little later, SpongeBob still takes the doctor's words into serious consideration, even though they were just acting. Alright. So that's about the end of this stellar start to the episode. From here it starts going downhill, but gradually, at least for this next segment. SpongeBob wastes no time in finding a replacement spatula, despite his earlier reservations. And yes, I understand that it is generally considered comedic when characters do the exact opposite of what they say they're going to do, and I also understand that if SpongeBob did not get a replacement spatula, then this episode would not have a plot. But that does not mean that I have to like his easy replacement here. Since it isn't particularly funny or amusing to me, it makes the earlier emotionally charged scenes feel pointless and also not cohesive. I feel like it would have been better if a new spatula was forced upon him somehow, like maybe Mr. Krabs forces SpongeBob to get one or he'd be fired, or something like that, and SpongeBob has to choose between honoring Spat or replacing it. I do like the scene of SpongeBob trying to buy this new fancy spatula well enough. However, that enjoyment ends abruptly the second SpongeBob has to get rid of his clothes. It's not even that this punchline is all that bad, but it's more that this moment is extended into multiple jokes that aren't that funny. And also, SpongeBob remains naked for the rest of the episode. I don't like that. It's at this point, right when SpongeBob walks into the Krusty Krab, that the downward turn of the episode starts to pick up speed. See, Squidward ain't all that funny in this episode, and his reaction to SpongeBob walking in naked feels dragged out. And Squidward also kind of feels shoehorned into the scene between Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob, serving no real purpose other than saying one line that, again, doesn't really make me laugh. After this, SpongeBob starts using the spatula, which of course backfires because it turns out that that spatula is sentient and a big ol' snob. I think the issue here is that we just spent 2 or so minutes of SpongeBob trying to find this replacement spatula and selling everything he owns to buy this one, which ends up with him being naked and nothing funny coming out of that, only to have the spatula dip out of the episode in like a minute. It's underwhelming and just makes everything we just sat through feel pointless. And again, because of SpongeBob's abrupt change from staying loyal to Spat to deciding willy-nilly to get a new spatula, his realization of what he's done doesn't have the same emotional oomph as it could have. Instead of feeling like SpongeBob learned a lesson here, I'm still stuck a few minutes ago wondering why he made the decision to abandon Spat in the first place. Well, all that glitters ain't done yet, so let me move on. I like when SpongeBob returns to the hospital and starts weeping over Spat, and the actor-doctor comes back. That part was funny. The rest of the episode, less so. But the lack of comedy never gets as bad as the part I was just describing in the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob talking to Spat, who then shuns him, would again have more emotional weight and sense if the episode had given SpongeBob betrayal legitimate reasoning on his part, and not plot-convenient decision changes. SpongeBob ensuing crying profusely and rolling around isn't really funny, but it is amusing. I just wish he wasn't fucking naked for like 8 minutes of this episode, because I think it's weird and off-putting. But anyway, I love how a cut of SpongeBob just kind of floats up onto the screen just to drop the episode title and then just rolls off screen. That makes this scene like 10 times more enjoyable to me just from the startled laughter alone. Finally, all that glitters ends with the status quo being reestablished, as Spat returns to SpongeBob. Why? Who knows? Maybe SpongeBob's excessive crying touched Spat and showed it the regret it was looking for. All I could say is that the writing for this episode could have and should have been improved immensely, because if this episode had stronger writing, there would be no need for me to question what makes Spat change his mind. The return of the monster Krabby Patty is a good bookend for the episode. This time, instead of Spat breaking, it's SpongeBob's arms, a much more amusing outcome for him. I just wish SpongeBob wasn't still fucking naked. All that glitters is It has a good beginning, but the rest of the episode, while never hard to watch, the writing of it is just poor and makes me question so many things while I'm watching, and not in a good way. I don't like thinking of how episodes could be improved while I'm still watching them, so this episode already is getting points docked for that. I just feel like All That Glitters has all kinds of missed potential, a kind of missed potential I hadn't yet seen from this show by this point. If the writing was more solid, then I'm sure the jokes would have followed suit, and even if not, this episode could have had a similar emotional plot to Have You Seen This Snail, or even Patrick Smartpants. If the writers had not prioritized pointless irony over cohesion and sense, then this episode could have worked, and that's why I'm placing this episode in my mediocre tier, where it comes in with a score of 5.3 out of 10. The writing is simply mediocre, and so much of what goes on in this episode is made pointless by events that happen later. Not a good watching experience. Following up that episode is Wishing You Well, which, I'll just tell you now, is an episode I enjoy watching a hell of a lot more than its sister. It's funny how All That Glitters was supposed to be, I presume, the more emotional episode, but I think this episode succeeds with eliciting some feelings much more than its sister did. Let's talk about it. I like the beginning of this episode a lot. I'm entertained by Mr. Krabs' greed and searching for coins and payphones, and things get funny nice and quick with the scene between him and the background fish Martha. I love how she just hits Mr. Krabs in the face with her purse, as she should. The scene not only contains slapstick like that, but it also has a clever joke with Mr. Krabs' retort about retirement money. And with this scene, Wishing You Well establishes its main idea, or rather its main plot device, very quickly, as Mr. Krabs bears witness to a wishing well. His dramatics about the money here are, as always, amusing. I love how Mr. Krabs is like, wow, this is a great scam, because that's definitely a new way of looking at wishing wells, a cynical way. But now that makes me wonder how much money is thrown into wishing wells anyway. I mean, like, people usually don't go to the same ones multiple times, right? So to get a lot of money, it has to be in a place a lot of people will go by. I suppose that's why they're usually just at fountains in malls, or I've even seen one at a zoo. I feel like wishing fountains earn a lot less money than you'd think, but whatever, this is SpongeBob SquarePants, I shouldn't question it. Moving on, we've got a fun scene at the Krusty Krab, with a line that I quote and reference so very often with Squidward's, "I'm not rushing perfection, I'm rushing you." Love that line. And then, of course, we've got some great, I don't know what to call it, when a character says they're not doing something and then they're immediately forced to do it. Whatever you call that. Squidward says that at least he's not digging ditches, and then Mr. Krabs assigns him and SpongeBob to dig the well. That was another funny moment. SpongeBob in this episode is adorable and simply perfect. I love how much he believes in the magic. It just makes me happy. And it's SpongeBob. It makes complete sense that he'd believe in the magic so strongly. His endless optimism and whimsy is a core character trait, and it's so endearing. That's why I love the little square dude so much. I also think that interaction between his ceaseless wonder and Squidward's staunch cynicism, as well as the little sprinkling of interactions with Mr. Krabs' greed and own cynicism, drives this episode to a good place. The banter between SpongeBob, Squidward, and to a lesser extent Mr. Krabs is really enjoyable when it pops up throughout the episode. And now that I'm thinking about it, this episode is really similar to Krabby Land, except with more Squidward and less Mr. Krabs. which means this episode is also kind of reminiscent of Idiot Box, but that's because this main theme of embracing childlike wonder is a key element to the show. I love SpongeBob's little song here. It serves as a reminder of who his character is, and it also plays over a montage of creating the well. There's also some nice visuals and visual gags during the song as well. And once the well is built, it's cool to see everyone's wishes. If this was a season 1 episode, I'd probably spend some time talking about how each person's wish and way of presenting said wish says a lot about their characters. This is still true, but because this is a season 4 episode, we're all pretty understanding of what everyone's characters are, so I don't really focus as much on these characterizing moments anymore. Well, I do, but not in the same way. I guess it also shows how this is a show that you can watch any episode and still know what's going on because of how character driven it is. I've talked about this pretty recently, I'm sure, that much of the comedy and plots are grounded in the characters' personalities. The next part of Wishing You Well introduces us to a new player, Patrick. Patrick is, well, he's just alright in this episode, to be quite honest with y'all. His entrance into the plot is fine, I suppose, relying on his dim-wittedness to get him inside the well, and this first little bit with him doesn't really make me laugh much. Like, the tag, you're it thing was just kind of annoying and more than anything. I do like SpongeBob's song reprise, though. Things improve once Squidward comes around, since he'll be able to join in on the dynamic, but part of me still feels like this episode could have been improved by writing Patrick out entirely, and just adjusting some elements to get Squidward involved earlier. The other part of me is just fine with the plot the way it is. The banter between SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick is fun anyway, including the famous claustrophobic bit. And this episode also includes the rarer kind of dynamic between Patrick and Squidward that I've pointed out before, the one where the dislike seems mutual. This kind of dynamic is always a treat to watch, when it's done correctly and fleetingly at least. Once everyone is out of the well, I love seeing the magic work its, well, magic. Squidward getting hit by a bus, which grants his wish, is pretty funny, and I love that we get to see Sandy, Mrs. Puff, and even Plankton get what they wished for. And then, of course, we have the great ending. SpongeBob is his normal whimsical self, while Mr. Krabs is still all cynical and greedy, and the back and forth between them about whether magic is real is great. And then I love how it all ends, with Mr. Krabs tempting fate by wishing to be steamed and served with a slice of butter. This ending is hilariously morbid, as Mr. Krabs is basically like, oh shit, and gets eaten alive. I also love the touch of the bib saying, the end. Wishing You Well is a fun episode, but it does have a few moments of nothing much happening, funny or otherwise. I suppose that might lead you all to think that I'm going to give this episode a lower rating than what I am, because all the good moments in this episode are just so freaking good that it eviscerates the bad. There's great interactions and dynamics here, as well as much appreciated cameos of many characters from the main cast, so that is why this episode is a good fit for my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9.2 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this review with some closing thoughts of mine. It bothers me that I can't put a finger onto why I think All That Glitters and Wishing You Well work really nicely as sister episodes. It honestly might be something as inconsequential as the word glitter. That's a word that you can also associate with magic. Yes, I'm serious, that might be exactly what it is. It could also be that the episodes, I don't want to say that they have similar themes, but they're kind of near each other. I don't know, it's like there's not taking things for granted and staying loyal, and then there's believing in magic. On paper, those have nothing to do with each other, but I still feel like there's some kind of connection. But it kind of just sounds like I'm grasping at straws, so I guess I'll just say that there's some inexplicable connection I feel between these two episodes, which is why I think they work as sisters, despite me liking one and not the other. Sometimes I get to thinking about all the missed potential of All That Glitters, and it makes me sad, because that episode most definitely had missed potential all over the place. I mean, the actual plot itself is something that I find to be a pretty good episode topic, but unfortunately the execution did not work, which I already explained in detail. Also, let's not have SpongeBob be naked for a whole episode. I just hate that. It's not just that he's naked, but I don't even like SpongeBob's design when he's naked. It just feels wrong, kind of boring, not visually interesting. But hey, at least Wishing You Well was good. A nice wholesome episode that has one of those messages of embracing your inner child that the show is all about. As of writing this script, it was just recently the 25th anniversary of the show, though we know that they're celebrating that all year. And so maybe I'm just a bit more in that headspace to look at this episode and others like it in this retrospective way. I don't know. I don't have enough care to make this thought more elaborate than that. Which I suppose is a sign that I should probably end things here, so I will do exactly that, and I'll see y'all in the next review.